Hello and welcome to Creative Momentum with Meg. You are listening to episode 9 of the home season. The home season is all about Australian writers and artists and how they do their creative work. Today in episode 9, I chat with Emma Hardy. Emma is a writer and I actually met her when I was doing improv classes, and she is a lot of fun as an improv teacher and she's a lot of fun to chat with. Her book will actually be out by the time this episode airs. It's called Periodic Bitch. It's a literary memoir about menstruation, madness and monsters, and her exploring her experience of PMDD, so premenstrual dysphoric disorder, and exploring it during the time of Melbourne's lockdown. So anyone who knows anything about Melbourne, we went through big lockdowns, very long lockdowns during COVID time. And she also looks at the history of how women's illnesses have been treated. It's a fun chat. I really hope you enjoy this conversation, and I will see you on the other side. See you later. Welcome to Creative Momentum with Meg. Can you just start by telling us a little bit about, your name and what your creative identity is?
Yeah. So, hello, Meg. My name is Emma Hardy, and I am a writer, first and foremost. And I work across both fiction and non-fiction. But I have my first book coming out very shortly, which is a non-fiction literary memoir.
And what is this book called?
It is called Periodic Bitch.
What a great title.
Thank you. I had some help with coming up with the title. We spent ages and ages thinking about it, and nothing quite felt right. And then my agent texted me that at 10 p.m. on a Saturday, and we went, yeah, done.
Yeah. I feel like maybe you need to give us like that little one-liner. What is this book about? Because it's got such a great title.
Totally. So this is a memoir. The tagline is it's a memoir of menstruation, madness, and monsters. I would say that it's a literary exploration of premenstrual illness told through my own experience of PMDD during Melbourne's lockdowns. And I use that as a way to kind of circle through the different ways that women's illnesses have been treated throughout history. So there's like a big blend of memoir, archival research, lots of that kind of hybrid nonfiction form, criticism as well.
Fantastic. I want to say up front, we know each other from a little way back. I decided to do improv at some point. I think it was like during COVID.
It might have been, yeah, I think either right before COVID or during COVID.
Yeah. I know I went there because I wanted to shake up my writing a bit. I wanted to inject a bit of kind of risk taking, and I thought improv would be a good way to develop a bit of that. And it turned out Emma was my teacher. So I think of that time very fondly, because I think also because I laughed pretty much for 2 hours once a week.
It was such a good class. I also started improv for that same reason of maybe not shaking up my writing routine, but definitely balancing it out, because you will have found as well that writing is a really, really solitary activity. And a lot of the things that you do when you're writing, I'm interested to hear if you feel the same way about this. Sitting down by yourself, writing, editing, taking forever to show anybody because you've got to workshop it to a good enough state before you put it in front of somebody. It's just the complete opposite of improv. Improv is you're collaborating with people straight away. There's absolutely no editing. Whatever you put down is done and out there. And you're showing it to people immediately. So it just really balanced out, I feel like, that creative impulse. And I think it's quite a good thing for writers as well. Even though it maybe draws in a more performer type.
There's so many lessons, though, that I took from improv that I have taken into my writing. And I think about this quite often, things like, uh, if a character is this, then what else? If they believe this, then what else? And it enables me to kind of go, all right, so what else could be going on? I think this works really well with fiction in particular, and going, and also that building up. So like turn up the dial, just keep turning it up. And the other one is the yes and. So if my character gives me something, then I just go, okay, what else? And I just go with it rather than kind of fighting back against it. Has improv, did it teach you anything for writing this book?
For this book, um, I mean, it teaches you a lot about writing and about character. There are some improv things that I think I've gone against in this book now that you're bringing it up. Like there's that idea of the simplest answer being the right answer in improv. Like there's no need to overcomplicate things. Sometimes your first thought is the right thought. And this book definitely takes that first thought and turns it around and around and around and around and around, and maybe overcomplicates it and then comes back to a state of like understanding. So that first thought is like, what is this illness? Is it even real? And your first response to answer that question might be, well, yes, of course it is. But I spend time overcomplicating it. So I don't know if improv has taught me so well for nonfiction. I think there are definitely elements of character that you can maintain. There's this great quote from, I think it's Tobias Wolff, in a letter to Mary Carr when she was writing Cherry. I think it was Cherry, her first memoir. And he says, like, have absolutely no care for your dignity. I'm paraphrasing. He's like, be cruel to yourself. Like, don't have any pity for yourself. Don't have kindness or graciousness for the character that you're creating of yourself. Just be ruthless, essentially. And I think that is easier to do when, or for me, I think there's something that makes that easier to do when you have been like vulnerable in front of a stage. You kind of are very aware of the fact that the self that you're crafting in a book isn't necessarily you. Like, it obviously is you, but it's still a crafted version of that. And so when you're doing improv or performance, that's not you on stage, it's a character that you're playing, but there was always going to be an element of you in there as well, just maybe, as you said, dialed up. So yeah, I think there's some kind of combination of those two thoughts. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. And I often think about that with when reading memoirs. The author becomes a character, and there's, and I'm actually just going to follow this pathway because I'm curious about it. Do you become a curated version of yourself in the writing of the memoir?
I mean, yes. For even the very fact that you're not going to write about every day. And so you're curating the days and the moments in which you write, and therefore you're curating your reactions and yourself as a consequence of that. I thought about that quite a lot when I was writing it, because I think I am quite hard on myself in this book, but I think it wouldn't work if I wasn't. And similarly, I think I'm really the only other character in the book is my partner, Pavan. And I think he's quite a curated character as well, because you need to have enough engagement between the two of us that people can see the relationship or understand why you two might be together, but also have conflict without creating a detestable villain, for example. So I think there are definitely some moments of lightness that were curated. And yeah, in a book that's quite dark, those moments of lightness were quite important to show the breadth of humanity as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that. Can you tell me a little bit about what your routine is for your writing?
Yes. So I have had a few different routines over my writing life. The one that I keep coming back to is from that famous book, The Artist's Way, which is to first thing in the morning, get up, 3 pages, handwritten, stream of consciousness, whatever comes out, you never look at it again. So that doing that first thing in the morning is ideal for me, although often now that's replaced by walking the dog because she's really needy and asks for that first. But yeah, trying to do that first thing in the morning and then moving away from that into the writing practice and getting something done first thing is really good for me. It's especially better if I can do it with somebody else. So when I was living in the United States, I had a friend, Arel, who was our next door neighbor, and I would just like go over to his place first thing in the morning and we'd just write together. Sometimes we might go to a cafe. I have another friend at the moment and we're meeting at the library some mornings to do writing. I've even tried to move my work day around so that I can start work a bit later and do that writing first thing in the morning.
So body doubling, I've heard some people.
Yeah, body doubling is the idea.
Yeah.
I'm very bad at attention, so I have all of the hacks in which to do it. I have an app on my phone where if you don't touch your phone, it plants a little tree in a forest. Pomodoro, which is just another version of the Pomodoro technique. I do the bullet journal as well, so I know what I'm going to do. I write in Scrivener so I can kind of just get it all out and then move it around later. Anything that stops that kind of block or makes it difficult to start is what I'm trying to get rid of as well.
Yeah. On the days that you're not body doubling, do you have a routine for that helps you get into your writing?
Not at the best one. Sometimes it's just forcing yourself to sit down and do it. Like I'm a strong believer that, the way to write a book is quite simply to sit down and write a book. And we are overcomplicated and think of all of these craft things or ways that are blocking us. And like, even right now when I'm working on book 2, part of me is like, maybe it is true. Maybe there is a block. But no, it's like just sitting down and doing it. And so the routine is not like I make myself a coffee or do this stuff. It might be just I have to walk the dog. And then as soon as she's done and I've put the food in her bowl, I have to sit down and stare at that screen until something comes out.
Tell me about your process with putting a story together, you know, where from the start to getting it actually done.
Do you mean like from ideation or? Yeah. So I think I tend to work more with like themes or ideas that I'm interested in. I'm not a plotter in any way, so I might start with like an idea or an image. I find that it's better to just write a lot and then not use much of what you've written. So I tend to work it out on the page. And then you get quite a bulk of material. And then hopefully, ideally, at some point, a structure will emerge. There was a great book on structure that I read while I was writing this book, which is called Meander, Spiral, Explode, and it's by Jane Alison. Have you heard of it? Have you read it?
I have. Steve Capone, who was on an earlier podcast episode, he mentioned that to me.
It's so good. I really, really recommend you get it. I love it. It's like quite an easy, for a craft book, it's quite like beautiful to read as well.
Yeah. I'm going to put a link to that in the show notes so that people can find that book as well.
Yeah. So like I'm thinking it's on my shelf somewhere. If it's not in my shelf, it's like in my bag because I actually am using it at the moment. But she talks about different have you ever talked about this on your podcast before? And I shouldn't go.
No. He just right at the end, he's like, "Oh, these are the books that you should all read."
Okay, well then let me talk about it because I love to talk about this one. Yeah. I love it so much. So one of the premises behind it is that the structures that we see in story are structures from nature. So like the arc that we see, the traditional story arc, It's kind of like a wave or a swell, and it's like quite a natural form. But she equates it to like a male orgasm where it kind of peaks and then it's over. And so she went on this kind of mission to look for different story structures that might inhabit like different feelings or emotions. So that could be wavelets where you have lots of like smaller waves and smaller peaks, which might mirror like more of a female orgasm. Or one of them is spirals, which we see all through nature and like vortexes or weather patterns. And she thinks that that can be quite a good way of taking an idea and turning it around and looking at it through like different from different angles, as well as through time, because like if you're looking at the orbits of the planets, which look pretty circular as you're moving through time, they're actually creating these spirals. So like a spiral, it's an interesting way of looking at a story structure as like you've got one central dilemma and you're circling it, and your position and view of it changes as you move forward through time. She also talks about honeycomb, like little, which you might see in like a novel like Bluet, where you have like smaller fragmented pieces that together combine to create something bigger as a whole. And meanders, so just kind of like these desire paths where we're following a story, but it's not necessarily adhering to this really tight structure. And so I just love this book. And for me, when I read it, it was just so obvious to me that my book had to be a spiral. Like it had to be obsessive. It had to be like this tension holding itself in, and everything revolving around these, like this one question or dilemma, as well as that kind of frenetic energy that you have in a spiral. So I just loved that book. And once that structure became clear to me, it was really easy to take all of the fragments and the bits that I had dumped on the page and go, okay, where am I in this spiral? And how do I position these together to make this narrative make sense? And to create this sensation of both being trapped in a kind of vortex, but also there's progression and you're looking at things from different angles. So for me, it's a lot of dumping stuff down on the page at first. And then at least with this book, once that structure became clear and I knew what I was doing with the shape of the story, then it was just a lot of editing, restructuring, and moving things around until I could feel like that was working. I don't know if it's even visible when you're reading the book that you'll see that it is a spiral, but for me, that was really helpful in writing it.
Did you have to kind of draw that out and you know, I'm always curious about the way people do things. Like, did you have printed out parts and then you put them around the floor, stuck them on the wall?
Yeah, I did it. Yeah, all of those different things. I did a bunch of different exercises. I did one where I was drawing the different threads and trying to see how they spun together. I did all the cards and the moving them around. I printed the whole thing out and then moved it around as well. Yeah, I actually put more time into those exercises than I thought I would, but I just remember deeply wanting to be able to see the whole book at once. And wishing that I just had like this enormous screen or something where I could move it all around. But that you can't read everything at once. So that didn't really help.
Yeah. You said you're writing the next book.
Yeah.
Is the process different for this next book?
The process is slightly different because this is fiction. So I don't have like I don't have the same sense of, well, if I don't know what to write today, I can just write about that period of time. So it's a little bit more, perhaps I'm thinking with more of a plot brain than I would like to for this one.
Yeah. And how is that sitting with you?
I'm not loving sitting with a plot brain. It's yeah, I don't know. I like sitting with scenes and images more than with and overarching at this stage of the writing process at least.
Yeah. I'm curious because I'm much more of a pantser than a plotter. And last year I was
Mm.
with some screenwriters, and so I plotted out this next one. And the rebel in me is wanting to push against that plot continuously.
So why don't you, or do you?
I am, yeah. I'm
Is
like,
that good
yeah,
though?
don't you tell me what to do.
But is that better? Do you like that more when
Yeah,
you're
I do. I think that's where I get to have fun. And especially in first drafts, to me, that's the playful draft. That's where I get to play and be delighted and surprised by what is coming up. Um,
do you feel like your characters are reacting to the plot that you had written before? And you
yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, they were definitely telling me this is not the story that I want to be telling. Um, for all those non-writers out there, yeah, this is how writers think. Like, our characters are telling us things. Um,
do you find that it's in their reaction to like it's their reactions that surprise you, or there might be a whole like arc that you're just like, actually that's not going to happen?
well, in this next one, it's the arc they
Hmm.
have pushed against and said, no, that's not the story. That
That's not what I'm following.
Yeah, that's not the story we're telling. But I've always been surprised by my characters' reactions to things, and I really like that. I love to be surprised, and I'm one of those writers where I can suddenly burst out laughing because they have surprised me in a funny way, or cry
Mm.
because you know it's sad and I did not expect something to happen. So with this one that you're writing now, like what's are you still in the kind of uh getting to know you phase
Yeah,
that
I'm still in the getting to know you phase. Um, on what you have, on what you were just saying though, one thing that I've kept in mind, and maybe this is the same as my like quote to Mary Carr earlier, a writing teacher in the US, Miley Chapman, for one of my short stories, she said that like it feels like you're holding back from having your characters experience the full consequence of their actions. Um, and I think that can be sometimes a bit of a protective impulse that is so fun to get rid of.
Yep.
And instead of protecting them for themselves or showing their cruelty or whatever, just like let them experience the full consequence of their actions. So
Yeah.
don't have them almost get caught, have them get caught.
Yeah.
Um,
I
that
think often fiction writers we are trying to protect, and we don't want our characters to have the worst thing happen, but
mm,
that's actually where the best thing happens, where the worst thing happens.
oh,
Um, it's where we get to see them, put under that pressure cooker
yeah.
and squeeze them until they pop. Tony Jordan, years ago, in when I was doing RMIT, she said, "Stick them up the tree and throw rocks at them."
Well, also it's like if if that's too much, which I mean you kind of rarely find that it is. If that's too much, it's much easier to like pull it back in
Mm,
than it is to have a very boring story when everyone gets away with everything,
mm,
and then try and push that further.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I think it actually relates to, I don't know, real life as well. That, when we are under that intense pressure, that's where we get to see people's true selves
Mm.
come out and see how they will behave.
I'm not going to advocate for putting actual people in trees and throwing rocks at them.
Please, let's not do that. Can you tell me who, what, or where do you get your inspiration?
Lots of movies. I think um, movies can be a really fun way of just like getting story into your body, like really fully understanding story. I mean, obviously, I read a lot, but when you are actively writing, it can be difficult to read really good books and not want to mirror their voice in some way. So sometimes, when you're still establishing that book, your own voice or the story's voice, at least, or a character's voice, it can be good to turn to a different medium
Mm,
than writing. But some like inspiration things that really have stuck with me. Like Ali Smith, I know I've gone straight to a book. The way that she plays with language, I just think about that all the time. Like if I'm not having as much fun on the page as it seems like she's always having, then I'm doing something wrong.
Mm.
But yeah, I'm really into people who are super playful, who are having fun, who have heart still. Like I think that sometimes we can be experimental for the sake of it and we can lose the heart of the story. But yeah, another thing was that Joy Williams, in her differences between a short story and a novel, she said that a story should have an animal within it to give its blessing. And I am always thinking about that too when I'm writing. Is like, who's not human in this story?
Mm. Tell me, do you play with other forms of writing other than long form?
Like poetry?
Mm.
No. Um, I will be a hypocrite, and at some point, someone will say, "But Emma, you wrote this poem." But you know what? Isn't it fun to say no?
How
um,
do you inject playfulness into your writing?
Sometimes, I'll think of a tangible example that can be easier to do. So, like, I was reading By Night in Chile by Robert Bolaño, and it's all from the perspective of this dead man, and it's a monologue. Um, and for this class, we were doing an imitation of that book. And I mean, taking the inspiration from my two joys in life, which are the idea of having an animal in a story to give its blessing and to imitate this like dead narrator, I wanted to write the story from the perspective of a dead cow. Um, and just like thinking about the ways that language might work differently for this character. Um, what might they know? What might they not know? But then there's also just like a bunch of playfulness of like, well, when it's nighttime and there's a moon, well, that's one word that the cow can definitely say. And don't we have like cows jumping over the moons in our stories and our nursery rhymes? It was like it was just fun. I'm not saying it's a fantastic
Mm.
story, but like it was definitely fun to write. And I feel like when people read something that's really fun to write, they can sense that.
Yeah, yeah. Uh,
Do you find play as well?
yeah. I'm always looking for play, and I do it in a bunch of different ways. Like I draw and I
Yeah,
paint. For me, that is just being playful because I'm not making anything to sell or exhibit anything.
yeah.
For me, it's just seeing what happens. Like I'm constantly fascinated by how marks on a page can make something look like a thing. Uh,
Mm,
and poetry, I do just for playfulness, just
yeah,
playing with words and seeing what words can do. And again, not for, I did get some poems published a number of years ago, and it shocked me because I just played with these words and thrown them together, and
yeah.
they were a poem, and then these three poems got published in a book. Um,
That's awesome.
I know, but it was, I do
Yeah,
sometimes find those
I do
random.
find the my aversion to poetry, it's not a real aversion. I make it up. I've made it up as like a character thing where I'm like, it's partly because I I only like poetry where the person is having fun.
Mm.
I don't really enjoy serious poetry. And then I'll be a hypocrite saying that because
Then there's a serious poem that you
and I'll
love.
love it.
And we're allowed to change our minds.
I'm finding joy in just making absolute statements that I'll take back later.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
That's being human, isn't it? That we can say,
yeah,
I never do. I never write poems. I wrote poems.
yeah, exactly. But I do like poems as like a language play. Um, or
Mm.
even actually, because I mean, one of my favorite books is The Monkey's Mask,
Oh,
which
yeah.
Dorothy Porter's. It's like a lesbian detective noir, written entirely in verse, with this lesbian detective who hates poetry. And I feel like maybe whenever I talk about poetry, I'm embodying her. Where like this detective obviously does love poetry because every thought that she has is a poem. But it's also like really scathing of the poetry scene, and it's really like critical at the same time as it's really playful. Don't watch the movie. The movie's anyway.
Yeah.
But oh, what was I saying? Oh yeah, I love that idea of genre as play as well. So like when I
Yeah.
was writing this book, I also wrote like a superhero short story where this superhero has PMDD, and like what does that look like? And so you're just kind of thrown like out of your comfort zone. I don't usually write genre, but it can teach you a lot about having fun with a story when you do as well. So I think
Mm.
sometimes I think of poetry as almost being genre.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually think back to our improv days,
Yeah,
and the word play that we always had in there as well. Like that is a playfulness, and I think as adults we do get a bit serious about what we're doing and forget to do play, because play's where it's at.
yeah.
It's
And
where,
also like you
even
wanted to
about
do.
serious topics like your book, like to still get playful with that. I think it helps it shine on the page.
Well, I also just think that we are, as writers, in many ways also entertainers.
Mm.
Like we might write without thinking of an audience because it helps to not think about the audience as you're just sitting down and doing it. But at some point, you're writing to entertain an audience,
Mm.
or if not entertain, make them like affect them in some way. And so you have to be thinking about play or thinking about tension or thinking about, or yeah, you have to be thinking about that when you're
Yeah,
writing.
well, we're the storytellers.
Mm,
The first moment I realized storytelling was a thing, other than in a book, was I'd been with my dad. He'd had a car accident, like a very minor car accident. But anyway, he was telling the tale over dinner, and he spun it, and I was like, "Hang on, you just changed that. Like that did not happen like that." So he was in a way teaching me how to tell a story,
yeah,
how to make it
that's so
more
true.
interesting.
Yeah, that's so shocking when you're a kid as well.
It's like, oh, but I trusted you, and now what?
Yeah, I mean, like that's what comedians are always doing. Might start with the truth, but never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
That's right. Tell me, if you were to be caught in a conversation with someone who is like, oh, I don't know what to do next with my writing or my creative work, or is just at the beginning of it, what wisdom would you want to pass on to them?
I think, and this is like quite specific, I think as a writer, it's and you're starting your career, I think it's really good to identify whether you're a holder or a sharer. Some people really like to hold on to their work and not show anybody until they think it's absolutely perfect. Some people make sense of their work by showing it to other people. And they go, I just wrote this down. Have a look at it. Tell me, what do you think it is? I don't know what this is yet. Help me figure it out. I think it's really good to identify which one of those two you are and follow the opposite instinct when you need to. Um, so if you want to hold on to everything, show people. If you want to show everyone, hold on to it for a bit. Um,
That is such a great pearl of wisdom. And I've not actually heard anyone else say that, but it's so true.
are you a holder or a shower?
I used to be a shower, and
Yeah.
now I hold on much more. Um, I think also that kind of evolved because, when I started really doing it, I was doing it at RMIT, and we had to share all the
Mm,
time. And that gave me validation of words, like, yes, it worked or didn't work. Um, but, getting to that point where learning to trust myself with it a bit more and
mm,
learning to sit, which I think everyone who's been through any kind of writing program will be nodding their heads at the moment, because you can end up with a lot of conflicting opinions about a sentence. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I was told in my program as well is that sometimes workshop will edit out the good parts too because they stand out,
Mm,
and people will read things through once and it'll stand out, and then they'll read it through again, and on that second read through they'll go, oh, maybe get rid of this, it stands out a bit too much, but actually that needed to be there. That
mm.
is fun and it stood out for a good reason. um so yeah, if you are a holder, I think you should show, but that doesn't mean you have to change based on
Yeah.
what everyone says.
And I think, I mean, I've run quite a few writing groups, and I would always say, like, when you are showing, know what you're asking for.
Mm,
So go into it very intentionally to go, I just need to know, like, does this make you laugh? Or does this make sense? Or, I want to know what feeling you're getting from this writing. So go into it thinking about what you're wanting to learn about it, rather than just, getting someone to say, oh, it's great, because that's so
yeah, that
helpful as well.
doesn't actually help you at all. But also, when you find someone who is a really good reader, who has honest, insightful criticism, treat them really nicely.
Hold on to them forever. Yeah,
Never forget their birthday.
yeah, yeah. I will never forget the first time I showed my husband my writing, and I really wanted some feedback, and I got okay.
Oh, that would be cool. Yeah. How did you
Yeah.
feel getting that?
Oh, I was like, what? Have some opinion. I hope you. Sorry, Matt, if you're listening.
It makes me feel a bit insane getting that. But I also don't think I'm always the best reader. I mean, you're not the best reader for everything. But yeah, yeah, my partner and I can be quite different readers. I think we can both be quite helpful to each other because we are quite different. But
Mm,
you need to know when it's the right time to ask for that person's
yeah,
advice. Like, he's really, really good with ideas, with plot, with play, with absurdity. Um, but if I've just written a really tender, intimate scene and it's fresh, probably not ready to have his critical eyes on it yet.
yeah. And I think that's such great. Another extra piece of wisdom to know when to ask who
Mm,
for certain bits of feedback.
mm,
And I've got my people. I know, like, you'll go through it intensely, you'll give me the overall, and I think
mm.
knowing who are good readers for you is really good.
Yeah,
Tell me, Emma, what is home for you and your writing? What does that mean for you?
this is a question that I don't think I have a good answer to. But I did move to the United States for 3 years to do a Master of Fine Art there. And I left during one of the lockdowns in Melbourne. Um, and the lockdowns had delayed me leaving for a year as well already. And during that year of being delayed, I came to this kind of realization that as a writer, it is quite important to be connected to a place and a time. Um, you can't just write abstractly about everything anywhere, or maybe you can, but I think it's important to, yeah, I think, yeah, that idea that everything's connected to something, but nothing's connected to everything. So taking care and understanding where, as a writer, you are connected to things. But then the idea of getting paid to go to the United States and be able to put writing at the center of my life, and there just wasn't, I wasn't getting any funding like that here. As I mean, like, there's all these arts cuts, like Writers Victoria have happened as well. The arts, I think sometimes Australia can be quite loathsome of the arts.
Mm,
That for me, I ended up going to the United States, which was very good for my career, and I got support as an artist. But I was very angry about that. I was quite angry about the fact that I didn't feel like I had that here. Um, so I do feel like Melbourne is home, and that is a place. And I know that there's many more abstract answers to a question of where is home for you as a writer. But for me, it definitely is Melbourne. And I'm quite angry about the way that Melbourne and Victoria and Australia can treat its artists.
Mm.
So it's a home, but not always a nice home.
Yeah. It's almost an abusive home. Yeah, and I saw actually earlier today that they've nearly got to 10,000 signatures for the petition.
Yay!
So
Yeah, they're so close.
if you're a Victorian and you love reading or writing or just the whole lit scene, please sign that petition. I can put a link to that in the show notes too.
Hopefully by the time this airs,
It's already been
yeah,
reviewed by Parliament and the funding has been reversed, or the
yeah.
defunding has been reversed. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time, Emma.
Oh, so good to have a chat with you, Meg. I really appreciate
Yeah.
you inviting me to do this.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. And I wish your book well, that it will, help others to be able to see themselves and, find their way through that. I think it's a very poignant discussion at the moment.
Yeah. There's lots of relatable moments in it, I'm sure, while also being quite relatably angry, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. When I saw the title, so just before we finish, when I saw the title, it reminded me of Rachel Yoder's Night Bitch, which
Yeah,
is such a great angry novel.
yeah,
I related to that so much.
yeah. That came out, I think, while I was writing it as well, and I was like, damn, that's the kind of I've always been really interested in, female anger, but also the ways that women are often equated to animals when they are angry. And so that book like fully embraces that comparison that's often made.
Yeah, it doesn't shy away at all.
No, not at all. And like the idea of like a dog being the domestic thing, a woman being supposed to be domestic, and the anger that comes through when you feel pushed into that position as the protagonist of that book is.
Absolutely.
Mm.
So thank you for coming on to the show, Emma, and we all wish your book well.
Thank you. Yeah, buy it.
I really hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I enjoyed chatting with Emma. We could have chatted for a very long time, as you can probably have guessed from our conversation. And yeah, we covered such wide-ranging topics. The book now is out, and there will be links to it in the show notes, as well as links to books that we discussed in the episode, things like Meander Spiral Explode by Jane Alison, which I have just received and I'm looking forward to diving into, and By Night in Chile by Robert Balafio. I don't know, or Balano. I don't know if I've got that spelling correct. If you enjoyed this episode, I would really love you to give it a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts, as it just helps this little podcast reach the creatives who need to listen to it and maybe need to feel supported in the work that they do. Of course, if you wanted to give a one-off tip, it is a really lovely way to support the show and me if you're not after another subscription. Some of the beautiful things that I really enjoyed from this conversation was one of the bits of something that she talked about that I've never heard of, about whether you're a holder or a sharer, as in, do you want to hold on to your words and never show anyone until it's perfect? Or are you someone that wants to show it straight away? And maybe identify who you are in that holder or sharer, and maybe follow the opposite instinct, because maybe if you're always holding on to it, maybe it's a good idea to show it to someone trusted. And if you're always showing it straight away, maybe you need to hold on to it for a little bit longer. As always, thank you for listening. And again, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks to Yvonne Morton for the music that accompanies this podcast. You can find her on Bandcamp and Instagram. I think she's composing something again, which really excites me. If you are an Australian creative who would like to be part of this conversation, please do go to the show notes page, and there at the bottom of the page is an expression of interest form. You can click on that and fill it out, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can, and I would love to interview you. Until next time, I want you to keep building your own creative momentum. You've been listening to Meg Dunley, and I've been in conversation with Emma Hardy, and this is Creative Momentum with Meg. Thanks for listening.